But yeah, I smashed into the back of that vehicle, and I think I gave a couple of band members. I'm not going to even say who, but I know I scared a few people, and there was some upset. Levels.
Check.
Checking 1, 2. Check it out, dude. Oh my goodness.
So I still come through. I turn it all the way down.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Check it out. Would you look at that? You got to look at it. I am David Martel. I grew up in a small town called Rolette, North Dakota. Moved to Bismarck when I was, I believe, 18, 19. Right, pretty much after graduating. And yeah, I've been playing in bands here since probably 2000, probably about 2000-ish, which started with you, actually.
Yeah, I did.
And yeah, I play in a couple of bands currently, one called Anonymous Phenomenon, which some people may have heard of. Another one that's kind of a newer project that I started last summer is the Artificial AIs. And that's been really fun. It's kind of a ska. Pat Litton calls it fourth wave. It's pretty fun. It's kind of brings me back to more punk roots, which is really fun.
Fuck yeah, it is.
Yeah.
What does fourth wave mean?
I think that's just because there was third wave and yeah, I guess I
don't know what third wave was.
I've never really I'm kind of bad when it comes to categorizing music. I tend to not want that.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was talking to, I don't know what Kelly's last name is. I don't remember. Kelly plays with Ling, which is one of Steve's other bands that I think roots back to Systems Victims kind of, or some other old bands from back in those days. That, I was talking to Kelly, who plays bass with them, and he was saying last night how I was showing him some of the music I've been working on of my own, and he's like, I like that it doesn't really have I don't know what to call a lot of the stuff you're making. And I said the same thing. I don't really know what I would call it. Some of it sounds like it's more for a video game, or some of it sounds like it's maybe theatrical music or something you would hear a part of in a movie or something, But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool that he's like, yeah, we want to always categorize things, and that's what it boxes you into this, oh, that's what you are. You're this kind of band or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's not a bad point. Maybe I just will skip being categorical about my music.
Yeah.
It's for everyone. My music is for everyone.
Yeah. It's for people who like music. It's for
fucking everyone. Oh, maybe not kids. No, I'm just kidding.
New car. Chevy Chevette. Must have cost a fortune for the fancy wheels and white striped tires.
Standard, father.
Radio. Reclining seats. On your salary.
Standard, father. Along with front disc brakes and radio tires.
And these fancy stripes?
$89 extra.
And why would you spend $89 on stripes?
The devil made me do it.
Oh,
Chevy makes good things happen.
So my first car was a 1981 Chevy Chevette, a four-door sedan, automatic transmission. The color was burnt orange metallic, in parentheses. And I know it had the bucket seats, camel cloth colored bucket seats with that beautiful burnt orange. It was quite a fantastic car, I gotta say.
Yeah.
It was the coolest thing. Literally not anything I was thinking at the time. It was oh my God, this car couldn't be any dorkier.
Oh, really?
Kind of, but at the same time, there was a part of me that was this is dorky cool. A part of me kind of knew already. That definitely wasn't a thing yet in the 80s. Well, late, it would have been 90s then, but still, being a nerd or dorky was not cool yet.
No, it was
not at all.
yeah.
You were getting picked on and bullied.
Yeah. And then those nerds grew up and took over the world.
Yeah, it's funny how like I remember watching like Revenge of the Nerds as a kid and being like, oh yeah, glad I'm not one of those guys. I don't want to get like, you know, my underwear pulled over my head and shit like that. But yeah, then it's like, I don't know, 10 years later, I'm like, wait a minute. Things are shifting a little bit. It's for the better,
yeah.
for sure.
Weird. 80s, 90s were rough for nerds, man.
People are getting thrown in, you know, you see it in the movies, but it was really happening. It was much worse in reality.
Oh, yeah.
Like, the dramatizations were actually like more tongue in cheek, and what was really happening was pretty traumatic, actually.
Yeah. We can laugh now, but part of my soul is still crying.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I'm with you. But yeah, the Chevy Chevette, 1981, it was a hand-me-down car where like my Aunt Joan had it as her first car. Her dad, my mom's dad, Grandpa Holcup, bought that. Joseph Holcup bought that for her, and then she gave it back to him when she was able to get her own car, you know, when she was kind of on her feet or whatever. I think that's when he gave it to our family to sort of go through the generation of kids in our family, which is what it basically did. I feel like my brother had it and both my sisters. I know I got it when my sister Nancy took off to go to college. So that would have been like 1995, 96, some fall of 95 probably. Is probably when I would have got that. But I know I got my license when I was actually 14 because I was a farm kid. So like I had
Yeah, that's wild to me.
Yep, I had my first driving experiences was way younger than that too, where like I remember my dad being out in the field and he's like, you could probably drive that grain truck from this end of the field, just follow that tree row, drive it down to the other side of the field. You could do that, right? And I wanted to do that so bad that I was like, part of me was like, I don't know if I can, but I'm going to say I can because I want to do this and I want to make my dad proud about it, you know, kind of thing where it's like, I'm going to do it. I remember getting in there and he's looking with me and looking at me I'm basically laying diagonally across the edge of the seat so that my feet will reach the pedals.
Oh, yeah.
I can still see over the steering wheel, which is not power steering, of course, mind you. These are just a big ass steering wheel that you got to crank with all your might. And, you know, when you're like, I was probably 10, 11, somewhere around that age. And I drove it from one end of the field to the other. And yeah, I remember on the way there, messed up and killed it, I think, one time. So I had to restart the truck, you got to push in the clutch and do all that. Like, I'm like, yeah, let me give you a quick 5-second lesson on how to drive stick, you know, so you can drive this truck from one end to the other. Yeah, I ended up successfully getting it from one end of the field to the other, and I felt like $1 million. And yeah, I basically was standing like stiff as a board, kind of leaned against the corner of the seat. I wasn't sitting really, you know, kind of hanging onto the top of the steering wheel, peeking over it, and with my tiptoes reaching the pedals. I'm like, okay, clutch and then the brake, clutch and then the brake. Remembering how to stop the vehicle without killing it.
Oh, yeah.
Probably other farm kids were doing the same thing at that point, and yeah, I definitely heard stories from other farm kids doing that. Of course, I also had these neighbor kids that would just completely BS stories about stuff like that all the time. It's like, oh yeah, I took my dad's truck, and it's like, you didn't do shit. You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my first memory driving. Yeah, the old grain trucks. Not a great thing to be your first vehicle to drive, actually. And thank goodness that wasn't my actual first vehicle. That would have been kind of cool, though, too.
Yeah, it would have been.
To show up to school with a big old grain truck. So the Chevette it did come through my siblings first, and I got it probably late or fall of 95-ish, I'm going to guess, or maybe it was early 96.
You're the youngest?
Youngest in the family, so I got of 4 siblings.
Okay.
So I got a brother who's the oldest, in the family, and then 2 sisters in between, Annette being the second oldest, and Nancy right before me. And yeah, we're kind of all spread out from like the early 70s to 1980 when I was born. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that Chevette lasted a long time. It did end up dying. I think it was like 1990. That would have been either 96 or 97. I'm a little uncertain. But I want to say it was before my junior year, which would have been 97. And so I think we had a boat, and my dad was going out to Bisbee Dam. That's where we go fishing a lot. And so he was driving the boat out there with the rest of the family. And I think my brother and I were driving the Chevette. I think. And I'm not even 100% certain if it was like the whole family or what, but the Chevette died on the way to Bisbee. And so it was pretty sad. I remember when it happened, it was just like, it just stopped. And then, yeah, I mean, I think we brought it into whatever it would have been, Beavers or whatever. I don't remember what the place was, but they ended up taking it kind of like Johnson's here, you know what I mean?
Right,
it's like
yeah.
The junkyard. And
No fault of your own, though.
no, it wasn't anything I did to it, although I'm sure we beat the crap out of that car. You know, like my brother and I, right after I got it, the shifter was having some kind of weird, like it would stick sometimes and kind of wobble on there.
Yeah.
So, and it was an automatic transmission, but it had a floor shifter, which looked super cool because it looked like more like a manual, you know?
Yeah.
That wasn't super common then. Most of the automatics were like up on the console. You know?
Right, yeah, sure.
I thought it just looked cooler, and so I wanted it to look more like a stick. And my brother was like, well, it's a 5-door sedan. It's a 4-door, but it had the hatchback.
Okay.
Which counts as like a 5th door. So he was like, you should put this 5-ball. We had like some old pool balls like laying around because there was a pool table in the basement that was just, it was like damaged and didn't really work anymore. He'd try to play pool on it and all the balls would go to like one corner of the table or whatever.
It's not even.
It wasn't good. And it also probably was, we probably never like set it up to, and I don't think anyone cared at that time, but so we had all these old pool balls and we ended up using the 5-ball, which happened to be also, I don't know if you know this, but the 5-ball is orange too. So it matched the color of the car.
Oh, sure.
It was like, yeah, it's a 5-door and it's an orange ball. It looked kind of matched. I thought it was super cool. You'd go to shift it and you grab that 5-ball.
Nice.
And so you'd see people with the 8-ball all the time.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. It's like, no, this is way cooler. You get this burnt orange kind of colored 5-ball out there. But yeah, that's a lot of stuff my brother and I would do little mods to it. The bow tie, the Chevy bow tie, that's what they call the little Chevy logo that's on the front. I remember first I took it off. I was like, that looks cool just without the logo. Like, don't have the logo. That's kind of cool.
On the hood?
It's on the grill, which on the grill of a 81 Chevette, pretty classy. It's actually kind of a cool car, I think, now when I think about it. It's total dorky, but awesome car. My family had been traditionally more of a Ford. Like, in the rural areas of North Dakota, you're going to find that there's always argument of like, is Ford or Chevy better or Dodge? Usually the argument was pretty much between Ford and Chevy, though.
Yeah.
Like,
I've asked
a
few people about it. It seems to be like a handed down thought process.
Yeah.
And I've never understood it.
Similarly to one thing about my family.
I can understand maybe liking one or the other, but it's the whole shitting on the other.
Oh, it's so
I've
dumb.
never understood.
It's the dumbest
I've
thing.
heard old guys be like, yeah, that makes sense. It's a Chevy, or of course it broke down. It's a Ford. Like, what? What does that even mean?
Yeah, all the little silly acronyms that people would come up with. You know, like I remember the Ford lovers were like first on race day, you know. One that was common where I grew up, because I grew up next to the Turtle Mountain Reservation. People would say found on reservation dump for a Ford. But it's funny because, yeah, my grandpa was more of a Ford guy, I think. And then my dad, similar to his political take on things. He never like, he just was like, it's dumb to just buy one thing and stick with that. Like,
yeah.
he wanted to know what the other vehicles were like, so he'd try whatever he could get. You know, he'd just get whatever he could get a good deal on, and he'd get that, and then he'd be like, oh, that's a good truck. And he had them all. You know, he had like Ford, Dodge, Chevy. He never really catered to buying a specific brand. He would just do whatever made sense at the time, you know.
Yeah.
And he never bought into that. I definitely took that with me, like where it's like, yeah, I mean, like you hear good things about certain companies, and probably some of the stuff is true, but like anything, it's a lot of it's just kind of handed down ideals that people are like, we've been saying this for years.
Yeah.
It's got to be true.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, my brother and I would do like all these mods to that car. The little bow tie, I remember taking it off, and yeah, set it aside for a while, then put it back on because I was like, okay, I painted the Chevy bow tie was usually yellow or kind of like this gold color. So I took it off and painted it blue, which is more like Ford was blue. So I was like, I'm going to make it kind of like not really like, I'm going to have it kind of cross over where it's got the Ford color, but it's a Chevy, you know, whatever. It was kind of a dumb thing, but I just thought the blue looked cool with the orange too.
Right.
And then eventually I think I just took that off again because I was like, it looks cooler without a logo, which I still would agree with that. Now it's like, yeah, just ditch the branding.
Yeah.
And then people are like, what is this car? This is cool. What is this thing? But yeah, my brother and I would work. We had a whole shop full of power tools and stuff. So we'd just take and start customizing random stuff, sometimes for vehicles. Sometimes it was like G.I. Joes and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I'd taken like try to like I was always taking apart G.I. Joes and like ripping them apart and building my own G.I. Joe.
I used to do that too, yeah. You got
Such
the
a-
little rubber band in there. Sometimes that would break, so you'd have to take that from
Take it
another
apart
G.I.
to get
Joe.
it. Yep. And
Or
then
if you wanted to customize a different pair of pants, you could take it apart.
I
and
have a
put
little
on
secret to that too. That with the GI Joes when they'd fall apart. Now, granted, these wouldn't last as long, but my brother had braces, and the rubber bands that you would put on braces work so perfectly in a GI Joe. It was just the right tension to replace that rubber
Oh,
band.
man. Nice. I
And so I
remember
would use
going
those
through
braces, rubber
different
bands.
sizes of rubber bands trying to find the right one and never
Yep.
could.
Yep.
Either
Yeah, because they're like a silicone or something, those braces, rubber bands, where they have a ton of elasticity, but they're also tiny, and they just had enough. Like, it was just like the perfect rubber band to replace the G.I. Joe, the black squishy one they had inside of there.
Yeah.
Anyway, weird sidetrack there. I also used to blow up lots of my G.I. Joes with bottle rockets, and
Yeah.
I
would do that too. I'd put them in the freezer just so they would look cool, you know, in ice, like Captain America or something.
Yeah. Yep.
I took one where I cut his hand off and then I burnt the stub on the stove.
Yeah.
I took another one's face and I burnt half of it on the stove just to give him like war wounds.
Yep. You were like waterboarding him too. At the same
Yeah.
Yeah, that definitely was. Yeah, I had.
Yeah, I did put a firecracker too right in one. Just blew the shit out of it just to see what would happen, and yeah, completely ruined that one.
I took a whole pack of black cats and like carefully broke apart the I don't know, it was like, you know, one of those big packs where you have a ton of them in there. I carefully broke apart every one of those, dumped a little powder out of each one, and collected that all together, put it inside of like a balloon or something. I can't even remember how I like made that stick together. And then I took a bigger fuse. I think it was like the fuse that lit the whole pack. I stuck that in there.
You're doing some MacGyver shit.
Oh, I was definitely, and I mean, it was not only black cats. I had like the black cats in there and some stuff from a bottle rocket. Like, I was just like dumping all the, like, concocting my own insanity. If my parents had any idea that I was doing that, they would have never let that fly. And yeah, luckily, I mean, I didn't lose any fingers. The G.I. Joe lost everything, I think, pretty much. He blasted apart in a way that you could not repair, for sure. But yeah, those were fun. And weirdly enough, other random stuff that my parents would let me do. I was just talking to my mom about it today, that I was influenced by the early, like, in the 90s, of course, there's like Nirvana was huge at that time. And it was, I was probably like, I don't know, I want to say like 12, 13, 14-ish at that time. That would make sense. And I asked my mom if I could take and smash one of their guitars. My parents both had these acoustics, and I saw Kurt Cobain smashing guitars all the time, and I was like, that's awesome. I want to do that. And so, like, my mom had this old Redburst Stella, like a Harmony acoustic guitar. And my dad had an old Airline one. Both of those, sadly, are no longer with us. The Stella, I'm about to tell you why. Because I convinced my mom that it would be fun and good for me to smash this guitar. And she's like, okay, I suppose if you go out in the yard and clean it up afterwards, you know.
Yeah.
So I went out there, and I think I had her take photos of me too, or like my sister maybe, because I wanted to look like a rock star. And I took photos wearing like a cut off jean jacket with like the sleeves cut off, so it was like a jean vest, and like kind of looked like a punk or whatever, you know. But I went out in different places around the farm and had them take photos. And then I think that was the same day when I smashed that guitar. So I took all these photos with it, and then I like had photos of me smashing it. And I remember at the time thinking it was pretty cool, like in the moment, smashing it to smithereens.
Yeah.
Followed almost immediately by deep regret, because I was like, that's it. Now that's done, and that's literally I got like 30 seconds of adrenaline rush. Yeah. Like basically like equivalent of a sugar high that really crashed hard super fast. And I was just like, oh, okay. Growing up in Rolette, there was not a heck of a lot going on. I was a country kid. I lived like 9 miles out of town. Essentially, I had a best friend growing up the whole time that lived about 2 miles away. And that was Ben Wiesinger. And we grew up like the whole time. He was born, I think, about 7 months after me, the same year. But I always viewed him as being a year younger, because it's like, well, you're not as old as me, you know? Yeah. And back then that mattered. Months matter. Like, so you're way younger than me. You're like 6 months younger, dude.
Dead.
You're a baby. But Ben and I, that's, after I first got that car and had my license, I was driving it, and whether it was that car or borrowing, I don't know, like in the winter I'd sometimes have to borrow one of my parents, or like the truck, my dad's truck or something, just because they didn't want me to go out and get stuck or something with that little two-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive vehicle that's terrible in the snow,
Mm-hmm.
But
back home we used to have snow. The good old days.
Oh yeah, and we had tons of it, especially up there. Like there's more snow up there almost always. Yeah, Ben was always kind of my sidekick, cruising around with me in that Chevette. We'd basically go, to and from, start driving to school, because that was the cool thing. You don't want to ride the school bus. As soon as you can get off that school bus, you want to get off the school bus, Yeah, so Ben would come with me. We would go to school together regularly, and on the way there and on the way home, we'd go to the I think it was just Rolette Cemetery, which is basically like 1.5 miles or something north of Rolette. And we'd go there. We called it Gravado because it was the graveyard, and it was just some weird thing to call it. We'd go there and smoke cigarettes, and pretty much before and after school, stop at that place, smoke a couple cigarettes, and then be on our way, thinking we're really super badasses.
Right.
Doing that. It's like, we're so cool. And
nobody's around.
We're so hard. We're smoking cigarettes in the graveyard,
Yeah. I had a few of those moments when I was younger, not smoking, but just being cool in a graveyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And it did feel cool. And I think part of the reason that that we would go there is, partly this weird dark association with the death aspect of like, okay, this is just a place that houses a bunch of dead bodies and bones. But the other part of it, I think, was that it's a kind of place where nobody's gonna question you there. Like,
Sure.
if you're there, if somebody's going there, they're more than likely there to visit somebody for their memorial or whatever, and they're like more than likely not even gonna look or question you being there. But most of the time there was nobody there. It's a small town, and so we'd just go there, crank up music and smoke cigarettes and sit on the roof of the car or whatever, and hang out there. But other crazy trips in that car would have been going up to Dunseith, or kind of by Dunseith. There's the Crossroads, they called it. And no, I didn't go to sell my soul at the Crossroads. I went there to buy booze as a teenager, because they didn't card anybody at Betty's Bar, which not trying to get the place in trouble. I don't know if it still exists. I bet it does. I have a feeling that place still is there.
Yeah.
It's still probably the same stories happening too. Who knows? But we'd go through there because you could get, if you were lucky, they wouldn't card you when you ask for booze.
Okay,
But
you'd
we'd
get like
always-
off sale, or are you hanging out drinking?
We'd get off sale.
Okay.
We'd just drive through. They had a drive through. It was like these small towns would have drive throughs at the bars. Like
I've heard of this.
our bar
never
had
got
it
the
in
experience.
Roulette bar had that. And we'd use that too. We'd go drive. You go there, and not to get booze because everyone's parents knew who we were there. Oh, we know these kids are. It was like a kid in my class's dad or mom who would answer the window at that bar. So it's like they knew exactly who we were. But we'd go through there and get the Jack's Bacon Cheeseburger pizza. That was like, we were getting those. It's crazy. They still make those same cardboard pizzas to this day that. We were getting those when we were in high school. I mean, I was like 16, 17, getting those, and you can still go get them.
Cool.
So for some nostalgia, every once in a while, I've had one of those. They're terrible, but but then we thought they were the greatest thing. I mean, it's totally one of those cardboard frozen pizzas, you know.
Right. And you're saying cardboard as in like tastes like cardboard?
I mean,
like the crust is,
they're just cheap, super cheap. I want to say they're like a $3 or $4 pizza or something that you can get in the grocery store still. And we'd go get those because you could get them. They were pretty cheap then too, and of course it was overpriced because they're selling them, for people in the bar, so they like price them up or whatever. But it was still felt like a great deal because you'd go there with a few friends and then you'd eat that pizza and be like, okay, we had. But besides that, it was like driving. Basically, in a small town, you drive around, probably like same here too. Like people kind of do that, still cruise Maine and all that, and that was definitely.
But you're running into a lot more people around here and socializing from car to car.
Yeah, there's like you're like driving around, it's like, oh hi, you wave to the like everyone, you knew who everybody is, and they certainly know who you are if you didn't know who they were, because everyone knew who everybody's kids were. The same on Main Street in Rolette, which basically was probably a total of like 10 or 11 blocks or something like that.
Yeah, you can't really get away with shit,
No, you did.
Nobody's gonna be like, who the fuck was that?
That reminds me of. I definitely did a few really stupid things. I had a couple of fun friends growing up there. That Matthew Graber was one of my friends there, and he would sometimes have some really funny ideas, or like they're funny now, but some of them got me in some trouble. One of the times I had my dad's truck because it was in the winter time, and he had this idea that we should pull around a sled behind the truck, and like I should basically give little sled rides to people behind the truck.
Yeah.
It was fun as hell.
That sounds fun.
And I was giving him a ride. He was riding in the sled, and we were cruising around. I was probably 17 at this time. Definitely old enough to know better already at that point, but
still.
definitely not. It's like, okay, we're totally doing this.
Are you cruising or just kind of?
We're going around. We're actually driving the streets all around in Roulette, kind of on the
So
backs.
awesome.
Not the main roads, but we'd go across it to get to. We'd kind of find little areas like, okay, we'll kind of drive around this area of town that's away from the main streets or whatever. And yeah, we were cruising around, and I was kind of like whipping it out. So
Of course, so
he'd
you
go.
can
Like you
spin
do with
around
like
or-
a skier or something,
Yeah,
so they
yeah.
can catch the wave. But in this case, it'd be like catch a curb,
Yeah.
or just about slide into a parked vehicle or something like that. But no, it was relatively chill. I mean, we didn't get too crazy with it, but he did. As I had just whipped him around this corner, and we were actually going by his house. And it just so happened that right then the police officer came around the corner and saw, and Matt took off running and like hid by behind his house or by his house. I think he took the sled with him. So it was like all I had was this dangling tow rope behind me. And he came up to me and he's like, "What are you guys doing?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" I tried to play dumb about it and like,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. And he's like, "Well, you got a rope hanging off the back. I don't remember how he put it. He's like, "Are you giving joyrides or, doing some kind of something stupid here?" And I was like, "No, I don't. We're just driving around. I didn't even realize that was still sitting, still hooked up or whatever." And he let us go. And I think it's no coincidence that he happened to be, that police officer was dating that guy's sister at the time.
Oh.
So I feel like that was no coincidence that it was like,
Oh, he's right there.
yeah. The thing is, I don't know if he even saw Matt or not in that instance. I'm guessing he did and kind of saw the whole thing. He probably saw it all happen. Mm-hmm. And we were just dumb about it and like, "Oh, what?"
Yeah, so many of
And
those moments
he kind
too.
of just shook his head at me and like, "Okay, you don't do any," it basically like give me a little scolding and then like, "I don't want to see anything." And that was it. Didn't get in any trouble, which is super fortunate. But yeah, and then I would get my dad's truck stuck in lots of places. In the winter, it was dumb. Like, let's try to 4-wheel drive through. Let's go through like
course.
this unplowed parking lot and see how far you can get. And then if you get stuck, I'll pull you out and vice versa, but yeah, it was super dumb. But did that quite a few times with another friend, Leon Boucher, who is definitely one of the good old boy type guys of my hometown. Who him and me would often be in these 4x4, not competitions. It was very friendly and just like. We were pretty careful, actually, and respectful to our dad's stuff, but at the same time, we would also just like totally get him buried, and then we'd very carefully like, okay, how can we hitch this thing out without like, I don't want to rip off a bumper. We need to use like actual tow hooks and like not do anything stupid here.
Yeah.
Amazingly, nothing was ever like damaged doing that, which is,
Not enough for them to know.
No, yeah, or us to know either, probably. Like, it's like, maybe that vehicle didn't last as long as it would have.
Oh, right.
Dad, if you're listening to this, sorry about that. I don't know. Ben was kind of like my main sidekick back in those days. We did everything together, and that's where most of the time spent in that first car, the Chevette. A lot of it would have been with him or family, doing stuff with family. But most of the trips are just to and from school. And then the early days of starting bands with Ben. I think the very first thing that we came up with for a name was Post-Apocalyptic. I want to say that's the first name Ben came up with that name. Mm-hmm. And I remember at the time I was like, I don't even know what that means. It sounds cool though, and nobody knew how to really play anything. My brother had guitars, and Ben had, his sister was dating this dude who kind of always had guitars, and he was a pretty good guitar player, actually. I think that influenced us a lot too. This guy Tom that was around for a while. He was cool in the sense that he would talk about guitars and like kind of be cool to us just because we, would talk about cars. Probably also because he was dating Ben's sister. He was like trying not to. He's trying to be kind of at least the somewhat cool boyfriend and not a total douchebag. He kind of always had guitars around. Ben's dad had a few guitars too around that we would both kind of pick up and try to plunk away on. But we started the first band, I want to say we were probably like 15, 16 years old. And we started that band called Post Apocalyptic. I don't know that we ever really made any music, but we did rehearse together. I remember doing that. And we even got to rehearse in the school music room. Like, they let us do that a few times, which is kind of weird now when I think about it. That's like, how is that a thing?
Yeah.
Because we weren't in any of the school band stuff. Although I think maybe Adam Ellingson was, and he was the drummer, and he was younger than us. But he was also the only one who actually knew how to play. Like, he actually could play his instrument kind of, like, and Ben mostly wanted to sing. And so that was kind of the thing. But Ben he'd kind of play. He had, he like knew how to play a little bit. And I remember he had already written a couple of song ideas, which to me was really impressive because I was like, what? You don't even know what you're doing. How are you like coming up with this? But he figured out some stuff that sounded kind of cool, Yeah. And it was like, oh, that sounds all right, actually. Not bad, And that's probably what really inspired me first to be, start like, I could do that. If he can do that, I for sure can do that, Because that's how you think when you're a kid. You're like, if my friend can do that,
Yeah, right.
then I can definitely do it, and probably better. No, I'm just joking. But seriously, I liked that about Ben. He was always kind of outgoing in that way of like, just take a leap and just try to do something. And I wasn't as much like that, but seeing him do it, it would encourage me to try to do that kind of thing. And yeah, eventually started playing more and kind of learning a few things like power chords, kind of learned my first power chords, how to play, probably Smoke on the Water. You know what I mean? Like probably like most kids back then, it's like the first thing they learn to play is something like that. Or it's like or maybe a Black Sabbath, you know what I mean? It's like, it's either Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple or Iron Man or something, you know what I mean? Like there's sort of these classic riffs and songs that became like every 1990s guitar learner like started with those songs.
Yeah.
It's like, yep, that's the first power chords I learned. It was Smoke on the Water or Iron Man, and but I actually did play a little bit of guitar even as a very young kid, but again, not knowing anything about it. But my brother he bought a guitar when he was a teenager, and I was probably 7 when my brother got his first guitar, which was like a Les Paul copy, and it was probably like a Hondo or something like that, where it was just some Japanese copy. It would have been like a lawsuit style thing where it was like a pretty exact copy of a Gibson Les Paul.
Nice.
But it didn't say Gibson on it. But the thing was awesome. And actually, I think Joe Johnson may still have that guitar. And the other guitar that my brother had was probably about a 1980-ish Ibanez Roadstar 2, which now, coincidentally, Luke Conlon has that guitar. And and he's taken really good care of it. I know he loves that guitar and like has done really cool stuff with it. But my brother had those couple of guitars when I was pretty young. And the first thing I remember doing musically was my brother came up with this concept for a band that he called Red Lightning. I even remember there was a song that was like, Red lightning's gonna strike tonight, red lightning. I remember that. And I remember also doing a song of my, like I was starting to sing and record with him. And I did this one. There was like, I don't remember what we called it. Maybe Rockin' in a Rocket. And my lyrics to it were, rockin' in a rocket, rollin' in Poland. Boy, Chuck Berry was good today. I didn't, I had no idea how to write lyrics, but I was just saying whatever has come to mind. And it's like, yep, that's how you write lyrics. You just say what's on your, and that's pretty much is it.
Yeah, pretty much, kind of.
So that was my early songwriting, learning to write songs, and realizing after you hear the playback, it's like, yeah, that's kind of weird, but it sounded fine, so you just kind of went with it, And I looked that up today. Red lightning is a term used for like some kind of electric discharge during storms or something like that.
Okay.
Discharge known as a sprite. Apparently that's like a burst of red light that happens above the clouds, like during a storm or whatever. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so anyway, I was like, oh, that's kind of actually cooler than... whatever.
Yeah,
but
right,
I don't know if my brother knew that when he came up with that name, because I'm guessing he was probably 14, 15 or something when he came up with that. But he eventually changed it to white lightning. And I know I have some cassettes. I'm pretty sure I still have a cassette that's from that, which is ridiculous because that would be me at like 7, 8 years old singing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you do,
if I can find that would be pretty cool to show, because it's like, what the heck. Anyway, so back to talking about with Ben starting a band. It was like my early musical endeavors were with family, with my brother, and even then it felt pretty. Like I knew I wanted to be some kind of entertainer as a kid, because that's what I was always doing, is like some kind of comedy act, or I'd dress up in different clothes and pretend to be somebody, and then I'd want somebody to film me, or we didn't even have a camera to do that. We'd just have like pictures. Eventually we had a camcorder, but that was in the later 90s. I was already like a teenager then, But once we did, of course, I was making all kinds of videos and stuff. I made one where I took a huge brick of ice. Like I made a brick of ice in a milk carton in the freezer.
Oh yeah.
I filmed the entirety of that brick of ice slipping through. Like we're talking like hours of footage of this. I hung the brick of ice on a coat hanger.
Uh-huh.
And because I wanted to see, in science, we were talking about how ice, solid objects can pass through ice, and the ice can reform on the other side. Okay. And so I was doing my own experiment with that. I hung this brick of ice from a hanger and then filmed it go through, and it cut its, the hanger did cut its way through, and eventually the brick fell, from there. But of course, as it melted through,
right, when it goes,
stuck back together.
On the bottom,
it didn't fall apart, Yeah. And I thought that was super cool, and I made footage of that, which was, of course, hours, and then
who's gonna watch this?
all I remember thinking is oh yeah, this really doesn't really work unless you just play it and fast forward. So I watched my video, and as you know, if you're watching a video from back then on a analog tape, when you're fast forwarding, you're mostly seeing white bars and stuff scrambled across the screen. So that was the cool end result, was watching these kind of scrambled version of that.
Science, bro.
Yeah, science. High five. Yeah. But no, amongst those kind of videos, there was ones where we had a little dog that my parents would every once in a while let me take into the house. And I made a video of the dog. I think there was something on Disney, or somebody had a thing where it was the dog that got real big. And I made my own version of that because I saw this and I was inspired by it. And so I was I went and tried to make my version of that. And I set up all these little car, Hot Wheels cars, and made a fake little town. And then I start filming the town from above. And then I call the dog over, come on. And of course, the dog comes running through and is knocking cars over and knocking buildings over and stuff.
Yeah.
And so that was, that was kind of cool. And I thought that was pretty creative, even though I was basically just ripping off another idea I saw somewhere else. But it felt really cool.
That's how filmmakers are born. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. It's everybody's been doing the same thing for forever. Lots of creative ideas were always kind of flowing like that, where I was like, oh, I got to do this, or I got to make I'd want to be like a TV announcer. So I'd make these videos like that, or I'd have my sisters or my mom pose and I'd set up the camera and have them read off like these fake news scripts that I would write and stuff. And I remember the one of my mom where like, I just was doing stop motion of her, and I was like, all I want to do is I'm going to film you facing one way, then I'm going to stop, I'm going to film you facing the other way, and we're going to it's kind of stop motion, right? So I'm like filming her looking this way, then suddenly her head would shift to the side, and then and then she just looked at the camera and her eyes get big and she's like, I'm the magic lady. And that was the whole thing, but it was hilarious and kind of awesome. Yeah. It was such stupid, simple tricks of filming tricks, but I thought I was very cool for doing that at the time. Yeah, lots of weird camcorder stuff when we got that. Ben ended up moving to Rugby, which I don't remember what year that was exactly. I do remember that was kind of devastating to me because my best friend moved away. And so I want to say it was his junior year and my senior year, but it might have been even the year prior to that. But it seems about right that would be about right. But of course, with that, I started going down to Rugby then because I'm like, I got to go hang out with my best bud, dude. Like,
how far is that?
And he's in Rugby, which is way cooler than Rolette. It's like a big town now,
Oh, yeah.
Rugby was about 50 miles ish.
Okay.
40 some. It was kind of the halfway. Rugby's like the halfway point between Rolette going to Minot.
Okay.
He met some cool guys down there that he started playing music with, and they were both much more talented. It was Brett McClintock and oh man, now I'm having trouble. Eric Toyne. Eric Toyne was his name. Eric Toyne and Brett McClintock he was playing with. Brett McClintock was playing drums. Eric Toyne was playing guitar. And I remember that the guy, Tom, that I mentioned, who was Ben's sister's boyfriend for a while, he had, I think, left behind this Kramer guitar at Ben's, and I'm not sure if that's how he ended up with it, but Ben somehow ended up with this cool Kramer that was kind of a Strat copy, but it had the cool reverse, not reverse headstock, but it had that cool Kramer Jackson looking headstock, which I thought was cool at the time. And I remember I made some deal with Ben where he either owed me or we were going to do some kind of trade. And he's like, yep, you can have that Kramer. Well, I left it at his house because I was like, okay, well, I'll just leave it here and then I can come and play it when I'm here, whatever. And then I remember being there one time and asking him about it. He's like, I don't know what happened to that thing. And so I never really got that guitar. And I remember that being kind of a bummer to me at the time of like, dang, I wanted that one. I wish I would have just took it, like when I had the chance. But no, those guys, the band name changed then to Weissendays because it was like they took his last name, Weisinger, and like made it sort of this poppy. It almost sounds like a 50s kind of poppy 50s group or something.
Oh, yeah.
Weissendays.
Cool.
I don't know. That's how I always thought of it for some reason. But those guys were really talented musically, way more than I. Like, I knew like 3 chords, maybe, and I wasn't even sure what those were. Like, you know what I mean? It's like I knew for sure like what a G and an A and a D were. And that's probably C, you know, like, and E. That's about it though. You know, it's like, you know, your basic cowboy chords, and then it's like, okay, what else do you need? You don't really need much because you can just power chord it. Power chord everything else, go by here. I pretty much played by ear anyway, so it didn't really matter. It's like, I don't need to know the names of the chords. If it sounds right, it is right. You know? But yeah, those guys influenced me a lot. Just hearing like Brett McClintock, he could really hold a beat down. Like I'm sure those guys were educated and actually took lessons because they could play much, much beyond my skill level, which I'm sure is probably still true, even though those guys went on to like, you know, have normal jobs and whatever. Many years later, I ran into Eric Toyn's mom. Unbeknownst to me, I was playing a show with Gypsy Foot actually at this place. I think they called it the A-Frame, which it was a bar at Lake Metagoshi. Weirdly, that ties back to my childhood, that A-Frame, because it was part of Trinity Youth Camp, which was this Catholic youth camp that my parents would send. Like all the kids pretty much went there. I was even a camp counselor there. And weirdly, this A-Frame building, that's where we would have these Catholic youth dances.
Oh, yeah.
All these years later, I'm playing with Gypsy Foot in this same A-Frame where it's super weird. And of course, it's remodeled and looks different, but you still could very much feel that. It's like those memories were right there. Like I could look around and be like, that's so weird.
This is where I got my first boner dancing with a girl.
Yeah, probably. You know, it was like, it was a super cool place. It might still be there because they turned it into like a hotel and like a resort type place with this A-Frame bar attached. But yeah, I ran into Eric Toyn's mom there, who I had no idea who she was. She came up to me and she's like, "Did you ever play in a band with Eric Toyn?" And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh my God, this is really weird. There's nobody should know that."
Yeah.
Who would know that? Nobody. Not even like my parents probably didn't even know who that was. So I was like, and she's like, "Well, I'm his mom." And I was like, "I've never met this lady before in my life. How did she know who I was even?" You know, it was very weird.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Yeah, I just thought I'd let you know." And like, whatever. And I ended up reaching out to him after that because I hadn't talked to him since we were 16. You know, I was 16, 17 or whatever. And I ended up reconnecting with him and just kind of saying what's up. And I know I'm friends on Facebook, I think, with both of those guys. And yeah, so I remember feeling like, okay, we actually have a much better band now. But the problem was I lived in Rolette and those guys were all in Rugby. So I kind of missed out on a lot of the opportunity because it's like, oh, we're playing this show, but it's like, yeah, I'll be in school. Like I'll be in Rolette in a school thing that you guys, because they were doing like school stuff. So they could do it, you know, and maybe it would have been something that I could have gotten to go or whatever, but I wasn't going to be like missing school or whatever, you know. My parents would have never let that fly, right? I was going to college first, BSc, living in the dorm, and just after doing like a year of college or so, or maybe it wasn't even quite that, I decided that I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I got to rethink this. So I pulled out, like just got out, dropped out of college and decided to start working. First, it was like at the Ramcoda or whatever. And then eventually I ended up landing the Happy Joe's pizza gig, which was like, ended up being a pretty cool thing because that's actually how I met you. First of all.
That's right. That's
where I first met you, was at the Happy Joe's.
Yeah, you were a driver.
And that shifted it. That changed. That dramatically was a huge change in everything for me at that point in my life, because that's when I first started to really build some community here. And it all pretty much does revolve around you in my mind, like meeting you at that Happy Joe's. Because like, yeah, just honestly, like meeting you, I was like my mind was kind of blown because I'm like, okay, this dude's playing in like a few bands or like a couple bands at least.
Yeah. I think at the most
And-
at one point was 4 or 5 bands.
4 or 5 bands.
Yeah.
Yep. And you had like, I don't know, I think we worked one day together, and then like a day later you're like, you should come and hang out. And so like I came to your house and like met like Sam Larson and whoever you were hanging out with at that time.
Yeah.
That would have been obviously the Sugar and Spikes guys, because that's
right,
that was what you were. That was like your main group at that time.
That's
from what I
right,
remember. Yeah. And so Josh Nordwall, of course, and
Tom Hill.
and
Sam.
Yep. And Sam, I became pretty quick friends with him too, just because he liked the kind of music that I kind of knew, like stuff that I was kind of starting to try to do. And we became pretty fast friends, and actually did a little side project for like a short stint while I was starting the band with you, which was, so Ben, I was still hanging out with Ben, and Ben did move down, I think right around that same time, or it was like, because Ben was already in town, wasn't he? You meet Ben I feel like I brought Ben with me when I went and hung out with you the first time.
I think that's how we met, yeah.
So like I was like, I'm gonna bring my buddy with, and then we hang out at your house, and like I remember just kind of having my mind blown that it's like, dude, this guy's like an active part of a music community. It was still not all like, I kind of didn't really know if it was real or not.
Right.
Like, this guy could be just full of crap.
Full of shit. Yeah.
But then you had a cassette of the band you were playing when you played it, and I was like, oh, this is real. This is not a joke. This is like a real deal. Yeah, it's just like everything kind of shifted into place at that time, because I think you said, I think I maybe showed you something that I was doing or playing, or that I could play like a song or whatever. It was like, and you basically encouraged me that I was good enough to do it, because I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing, and you're like, you should play. And my answer to that was basically like, I don't know enough, and you basically kind of were like, do it anyway.
Yeah, that's
because
I didn't know enough.
Basically you're like, you're good enough at it to do it, so
yeah.
just do it, and I was like, yeah, that's actually pretty logical. I can get behind that. So yeah, and it wasn't long after that we started playing Little Devious Me, which I don't really remember how that even all formulated. Probably the 6th Street house that Ben was living at probably had some
we started
tie to
hanging
that.
out there, and at some point I was doing shows and always wanted more bands to play. And I felt in order to do that, one easy way was just to make a band, which is why I was in so many bands, because I just wanted more bands at these shows. I wish I could have cloned myself at some point. So yeah, I think it was just the 3 of us for a period until we got Phil on drums.
Yeah, you know what? You're right, because we did at the 6th Street house before we even had other band members. It was just basically the 3 of us talking.
Yeah.
I feel like this thing is, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but for some reason in my head, it's either you or I that came up with that name, Little Devious Me.
It wasn't me.
Okay, so I feel like I came up with that name. Maybe Ben would know for sure
Right.
on that, or he would say that he made it up.
Yeah, he might say it was him.
I'm just kidding. But anyway, yeah, I think I came up with that name, and it just, something about it was just like, that's great. Like,
I know,
that just
same,
feels
yeah.
so just
loved
feels
it.
so right. Because it did feel like that fit our personalities pretty good combined. And we had the first song, I think, was My Girlfriend's Couch is Orange. I think that's the first like real song that we came up with.
Right.
Because it was like it felt like a hit song right away as soon as we like were doing. It was like, this is cool. This is kind of good, I mean, now the lyrics probably didn't age the best. If I was,
Oh yeah, no, looking back.
but But I remember like sitting in Ben's bedroom and like playing it on an acoustic guitar. And I feel like you were like the three of us sitting in a room and we're like, okay, that's cool. And like kind of, we probably kind of worked out how to form it into a full song. Like you had a better idea how to do that than I did. I was,
right, let's change it here and then move on to
like,
this
okay,
part.
repeat this part again and then go back to this or whatever, I remember that being like the first song and not really having, just kind of playing it in the house or like at different, like if somebody had an acoustic guitar, you like pick it up and play these songs to entertain whatever friends you're hanging out with at the time. We started doing some shows like at the Midtowner.
Yeah, the good old Midtowner.
Yeah, lots of shows at the Midtowner. And then some oddball ones, like playing in that weird, I was talking to you about this the other day, that we played this weird show in Williston.
Oh, right.
Did you think about that anymore? Like, what was that
I still
place?
can't place it. I'm thinking it was Pat's Treasures. Yeah, you were saying it was like a store.
Yeah, I just remember
right?
going there and thinking like, what's happening even? What are we doing? Because it's like we went into what I felt like was like a hardware store kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And then, but there's a bunch of kids hanging out and there's like, yeah, and I just remember being like, there's like a cash register and like a main, like and it just seemed so weird. Like, but it was also like a fairly open place. Like it didn't have that much stuff in there. So it was like kind of perfect.
Right. Yeah.
But it was just the weirdest, also just super weird. And I feel like some gear got lost at that show, but I don't know if you remember that or not, but I want to say Phil played drums.
We lost some of his drums.
I think we lost
Somebody
his
didn't
drums.
close the back
that's
door on the van.
That's what it was.
And when we were driving down, we left that place. I don't remember where we were staying or going. That's to a hotel. So I think we took like a highway or some part to go outside of town to get around. And at some point we made a turn. We heard something. We
lost stuff. Yeah.
And some drums just like rolled out. We went back looking. We checked ditches. Yeah. I don't remember what he lost, but a couple of drums.
It's so dumb that we would have not.
Like,
how did that happen? But yeah. That place, that was really cool. There was some super odd little shows like that where we would. And I mean, that was what was cool about playing in a band with you. You were already like in the scene and making things happen. So it was just like. Just an instant shoe in and having shows, going from being like not having any experience to like, okay, you're going to get all this experience like really quick.
Yeah.
We're going to be playing shows every weekend.
I was so busy back then. So motivated too.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like it just felt like you'd just like, okay, I'm working today and then we're going to play somewhere else tomorrow or whatever. Yeah. I do remember having some rehearsals, but it's more like we would just have like, okay, we'd have a rehearsal to like make a new thing. And then it's like, all right, let's go do the shows. Like that's basically rehearsal. Okay, here's another new song idea. Good enough. All right, we're ready to play a show.
And these songs were so weird too, because I would have a riff, but nothing really completed.
Yep.
And then you would complete the other end with your style.
Yep.
And it was almost just a odd collage of.
And then Ben was so good at just like he could just start rambling nonsense.
Yeah.
And it would usually be somewhat cohesive. Like he was actually pretty good at just riffing lyrics. And something that I've never been. I was always envious of.
Yeah, just
Ben
riffing and rhyming.
It's like, what? You're making up stuff and it makes sense. Like, how do you do that? Like when I do that, it's back to those Chuck Berry being good, rolling in Poland, like the lyrics that don't make any sense because my brain is just this weird creative mush of nonsense.
Yeah.
So it's like I just take any random items, like, okay, smash those random items together. And then everyone else is like, what? What's going on here, dude?
I do that too. For my dog, I'll sing to my dog and I'll just make random shit up. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, those Little Devious Me shows led to just more, like doing more and more shows with that and kind of branching out, seeing you playing in other bands. It's like, oh, well, I feel like you need to be in another project too.
Right, yeah.
And so it wasn't too long after that. I think Free Beer was what, and I'm sure there have been like a million bands with that name.
Right, of
There
course.
probably,
Yeah, just to put
there's
Free
probably
Beer on the
currently
flyer.
At least a million bands with that name. But Sam Larson was like, that's a great name because you can put it on the flyer. Everyone will think there's free beer, but it's really just us. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we're just going to really disappoint people. Like, that's going to be our thing. And yeah, I mean, we were doing like covers of like Sublime or, you know, just like it was something like that. And which eventually kind of led me to forming another band with, I think it was because of Free Beer that Roost or the Experimentals kind of formed, because the Experimentals was what we first called it. But I had started kind of playing with my cousin, Dustin Crinta, because he was taking some guitar lessons and he was starting to actually learn. Like, he kind of knew more on guitar too, just because he was doing lessons. And I was never doing lessons. I just kind of learned it from feel and like, how do you play that? How do you do that? Okay, cool. I got it. All right. I think I know how to do this now. You know, I just ask. It's like, what's that shape like? What do you do with that? And I learned a ton of that stuff from you, of like, just basically you reinforced a bunch of things I already kind of knew, but didn't realize. I was like, oh, that's sort of a rule. Like, you can use that like all over the guitar.
Oh, right.
Like,
yeah.
you know, this bar shape or whatever, or this power chord or whatever. I think we were doing like a Free Beer show. Dylan Marcus and Derek Elam came up and confronted me, and both were like, we're trying to start a reggae band, like a reggae influence. I want to say that's how they approached it. And they both kind of came up to me, like they sort of like cornered me, and like, they were like, we like what you're doing, and we think it would be cool to do something with you. So like, I was like, cool, yeah, let's try it out. And then we ended up starting the Experimentals, because we didn't have a name at first, but we did start making music pretty quickly. And I think that was still kind of overlapping with Devious. Like, we were doing, I know it was actually, because you sent me several flyers a couple of years ago. Actually, you were showing me all these flyers, and I was like, holy crap. They're Little Devious Me, the Experimentals, Little Devious Me, Roost, Little Devious Me. There was all these shows where like I didn't remember doing one show, the same bill with both bands. I never remember that happening at all, but apparently it happened like a bunch. Because you had the flyers that said it. So I mean, like, they clearly it did. But weirdly, I mean, do you remember that? I don't really remember that happening, weirdly. Like, I totally remember once you showed me the flyers, I was like, I totally remember that flyer.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I'll look back at just a flyer and I'll remember the show.
Yeah. Yep.
And who was there, who I was talking to. It's weird, yeah.
It'd probably be like, it probably would, if I looked at those flyers again, I'd probably start tracing together back some of those memories of like, oh yeah, okay. It's super cool to look through those flyers to kind of spark those memories. See, even that one, the last one that you just showed me, where Gypsy Foot played with the Vexed at Buckstop Junction, I didn't remember that happening.
Yeah.
I don't remember that. But now that I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. Mm-hmm. But it's also like, crazy, you know? Like, I remember.
Yeah, in 2004.
Mm-hmm. And that was Saturday, May 1st, 2004. So it sounds like Little Devious Me then. So that's kind of the first band I was in here, which was with you.
Yeah, we
and
just
Ben.
figured that started in 2000.
In 2000, yep. And that makes sense. I would have been 19 and 20 years old at that time. And
so I was still in high school.
Yeah, you were still in high school.
That's so crazy
Yep.
to think.
I don't remember who was originally in it besides, of course, it was the three of us, Ben, you, and myself. I know we also did do some with Brooks Vaughness as well.
Oh, really?
Where she played drums with Little Devious Me for a little bit.
Live?
She even played one at the Liberty with us. And the Liberty.
Oh, really?
Yep. And that which I just kind of went there, but the Liberty, I'm sure people have talked about it before, but that place, it was a venue in Minot that, in my mind, you go in there and somehow it was organized and really cool. Stickers like everywhere. It felt very like it was run by the teenagers playing in it, and it literally felt like a safe haven for kids. Like you could be yourself entirely and not have to worry about like. It just felt like there were no adults there.
When I'm thinking about it now, I don't know if there ever was. Besides, some of the bands.
There was something really special about that place because I know it stood out amongst all of the venues, and we saw quite a few just in those first little stint of playing with Little Devious Me and looking through all these flyers of playing all these different places. And a lot of these just being in Bismarck, but there was
right. I never got copies of the shows in Minot or Williston. Never at the time, never thought to ask for copies.
Yeah, and there were definitely lots of those. I remember playing at least a good handful of shows at their Liberty in Minot, and if I can remember a handful, that means there's probably more of them.
Oh, right,
too.
Yeah.
But
I remember playing in many other small towns that I had no idea what the town was.
You know what I just remember?
Now that I'm older, I've been camping and traveling throughout North Dakota.
Yep.
At that time, I just didn't know where I was, how far I was.
I just remembered now thinking that, because we were talking about this before, not in the interview, but just talking about it personally, that BJ Moore was in so many different bands in Minot. Mm-hmm. And at the time, obviously, Crimes of Conspiracy with Trent and Ta, I think you said. And, but there was actually a Devious show where we didn't have our drummer, and BJ played drums with us.
Oh, really?
I just remember that too, that it was like, he's like, I could do it. And he totally, he crushed it, of course. Like, because he's just such a badass musician. Yeah. And I was like, I just remember me being completely mind blown by that too, because he like nailed it. Like, it was as if he knew the songs perfectly.
That is
and he
awesome.
probably did. He probably did, like, just from memory, like, heard us play them a handful of times. Was like, I know how they go.
Sure, right.
he sat down and played them, and it was pretty flawless. Like, it felt like he was a member of the band. Like,
that is awesome.
Like, and yeah, it probably doesn't stand out a ton because it was that good. Like, he just delivered. Like, he just got behind the drums and like, whoop, this is how it goes. Like.
So did we just show up without a drummer?
I guess so. Or maybe when we got there, Phil was going to come separately or something.
Could have been.
Or who knows? But I do remember, BJ just stepped in and was like, I can drum for you guys. And that totally happened. And it's a weird, just kind of random that it came to me. But obviously he was always part of that scene. And like, but the Liberty was... It was a place to be liberated, like I was saying before. It felt like you could really, truly be yourself and not worry about like anybody judging you for doing so. And it felt totally free. And honestly, I don't ever remember a cooler. It was not a big venue. It was pretty tiny. And
right.
Really crammed in there.
I've described it as the size of a trailer.
Yeah. Yep. It was pretty much like a trailer that had a full length bar on one side of it, so you really only had like,
you'd walk in the front, you got a long bar on the left side, and then the whole room is just one long room, stage way in the back, kind of on the right side corner, and then in the middle a back door, and then on the left a tiny little shitter,
little bathroom. Yep.
That had a sign that was, if it's pee, leave it be. If it's brown, flush it down.
Yep, that's funny. That's probably the first place I saw that sign. And yeah, that place kicked so much ass. That was the place.
Yeah, I miss that place. There needs to be a documentary or something on that. That would be fantastic.
It's the place where, like, I feel like all of the people who played there probably would relate to this thought. But, like, to me, it was the place where you really felt pro, like, doing it. Like, because you show up and everybody respected you there. Like, it didn't matter what band you were in. It didn't matter if nobody ever heard of you. Like, everyone was excited to see the music. Didn't even matter what it was.
Yeah.
It's just like, I can't wait. And I mean, it just felt so cool every time.
I think I did say something like this on the mic before to somebody about the Liberty, that you could get up there and just shit into the microphone and they would love it.
Yeah, it just, people just
not
loved
to like put down their taste in music.
No, it wasn't like that though. It was the opposite. And it was the fact that they're so open to receiving art, and like, it's like, yeah, we just want to encourage creativity. And that's what it was. It was just this place where no matter what you're creative, you could be completely the opposite of the band playing after or before you, and it was very well received.
Yeah.
Did not matter. It didn't always feel like that at other venues. It felt a little more like you. Not that there wasn't good community in this scene altogether, because there really was. But I've said this before recently to other musicians that, like, the guys coming into it after that, like in the later, if you say like anything time after like 2000 sometime in the teens, I feel like there was a big shift that really kind of like, where it was like, actually now everybody kind of is starting to be okay with each other.
Exactly.
Instead of like,
weird?
well, I'm in a metal band, so I don't really hang out with the punk guys, but we do play the same shows, but I hang out with my, like it felt kind of like that at the time.
A lot of us have very fond memories of that 2000 to 2005 in the music scene here, because it was really, there was a lot of shows, a lot of bands coming through. A little bit of, Geiger and I were talking again, competition.
Yep.
And I didn't see it that way necessarily at the time, but now that I've been kind of seeing the music scene, the last 10 years, it's very much more community oriented.
Yes. And I keep outwardly just saying it to musicians that it's like, this is awesome. We need to all support each other. Like,
right.
The thing that's happening now where musicians are collaborating that would not have collaborated then together. You have rappers collaborating with bands that are like Dakota Faye, for example, doing collaborations with Aventide, or like, just seeing all these very different groups come together, and it's like, you wouldn't have seen that then.
No, you didn't.
If you did,
we did have shows where a metal band would play.
Absolutely.
A reggae band, hip hop, and an opening folk act.
Yep.
They would play together, but they weren't really collaborating.
No,
and they would
not
bring
really.
their own fan base, sort of.
Yep.
And sometimes when that band was over,
that fan base was
gone. Yeah.
Yep. There were. That's actually an interesting. I remember. I'm going to kind of go fast forward a tiny bit just to jump to this, because when Gypsy Foot did play the first show that we ever played as a group, we didn't actually have a name officially yet. We just kind of, and I think we did go by something at that time.
Can I tell you a nickname Ben gave you, and I think it was out of jealousy?
What's that?
Camel Toe.
That's perfect.
Yeah, I loved it. It was funny, but I was like,
that's endearing.
It's kind of mean.
Thanks, Ben. I love you, buddy. See, he knew that I love pussy, so. Oh, that's funny. No, he. Yeah, that first show that we played, it was like there was no official name. We might have gone by. Oh, I think we went by Bantam Brethren, because that was like,
funny. I remember that now.
That was a thing that I was saying in Roost, because it comes back to like there's an Andrew Bird song on the album Bowl of Fire, or Thrills, I think is the album. Andrew Bird's Bowl of Fire, Thrills is the album, and that there's a song where he sings about a bantam rooster, and that stuck in my head because it's like, oh, roost, like
sure,
it's
right?
totally not even like having anything to do with that, but at the same time that like stuck in my head, and so I remember thinking like, bantam, what is that? Why is a bantam rooster? And it's like small but combative, and like was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, that's what I want to call my clan. Like, and again, that kind of goes back to like people feeling like they're in their little different sects.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and I was like, oh, my crew is gonna be Bantam Brethren. Like, that's gonna be my like posse or whatever. And Gypsy Foot played the first show. It would have been like the Tumbleweed or whatever the place was in Lincoln.
Oh, Lincoln, yeah.
Would it have been the Tumbleweed? Whatever it was. DJs. It was DJs, I think.
Okay.
Yep. Weirdly, we did not have, like I said, we didn't even have an official name yet. And I don't remember who else played that show. I wish I could, but I know I was really wrapped up in doing this Gypsy Foot thing. We also didn't have like official who was in the band, because when we would get together and jam, we were often jamming at this place that was the Buffalo Alice jam spot in Mandan. Yeah. And it was like a basement place. Coincidentally, Aventide has a place very close to one of those places over there where they practice now. But
a basement?
Basement in Mandan, like right off Main. You know, like we did a lot of collaborative sessions there, and it would be everyone that was just hanging out. And I remember those there was no band, but it was like Nolan Falcon, Chad Falcon, myself, Dylan Marcus, Ira Roberson, Roger Nordquist, Joe McCauley, of course, all the Gypsy Foot guys. And then also it was Mike Renner, Chad Beagler, Amber Olson, like just all these people that we were kind of hanging, like basically all of our friends. And it was so like, it would be all these people who were playing music, but also everyone else that they're hanging out with. And most of these people could also play. Like, I mean, Chad Beagler would like pick up a guitar and play some stuff too. And Mike Renner, I think he's like playing some percussion or doing, you know, like it would just be these huge collaborative jam sessions with a bunch of people, like, you know, 12 people all playing instruments. And they were awesome. Like, they were really fun collaborations. But the core that was of that group was Gypsy Foot. And it was, that kind of essentially came from Roost. But I'll come back to that because I got to finish the DJ's thing. So what happened at that DJ's show is we showed up and there were some other bands that played. And I remember watching other bands play. I don't remember who any of them were, unfortunately. I wish I could. But I do remember that it seemed like the place was kind of dead. And then when we played, it was packed. Like the place was packed when Gypsy Foot played. Or Bantam Brethren. And I think we played in the middle. Like we were in the middle spot. So it was a very weird shift of like the place is like dead.
Yeah.
Then suddenly it's packed in there. We play. We're done playing and the place emptied out again.
Oh, you fuckers.
I know. I felt terrible. And I didn't even know who most of the people were.
Yeah.
That's the weird part is like, who are these guys? And I equate it to... It probably comes back to the something Cameron Ali said, which is like, you guys stole Funky Arab's fan base.
Oh, funny. Right.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I'll give Cam a nod on this and just say, yep, I think we just stole the Funky Arabs fan base. Because I didn't know who some of those people were. They were probably friends of all of those other people I just mentioned. Because I'm sure at that show, I'm pretty positive Chad Beagler, Mike Renner, some of those guys that were kind of hanging out, they were there, and they probably brought a bunch of other friends that, you know, I probably knew them later, but that day I was like, I don't know who all these people are. And I remember thinking, what happened? We don't even have a name. What is going on? It was a weird reveal though of like, okay, I think we do have something pretty powerful here because we haven't even put a name on this project and we've already drawn in a huge crowd and it just sort of, it like spearheaded from that into a bigger thing. But yeah, so that did really come from, Gypsy Foot really did form, whoops, I turned my phone back on. I would have turned this off.
Son of a bitch.
Right in the middle of. So that did, Gypsy Foot really did form from from Roost because there was a show that we were playing, and it would have been sometime in 2003. It was the, is it the Amvets that's on
Maine?
Just off of Maine? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Amvets. We were doing a
24th.
show at the Amvets. Yep. And we were doing a show there in the, I think in the basement part.
Yeah.
The basement part. Roost was doing a show there, and it turned out that my cousin wasn't able to come. I think he had work or something, or he maybe just didn't. I don't really remember the details on that. But I remember being kind of feeling like in a weird spot because of it. Like, okay, we're missing a member. We're not going to do these songs because of that. I had been working with Chad Falcon at Papa John's for a little bit already, and showed him a CD of Roost, and he didn't believe it was me. He's like, yeah, right. I'm showing him this music, and he's like, this is your band? You're full of shit. I was
That's
like,
kind
no,
of a
that's
good
me.
compliment. I like that, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so at the time.
You,
I was like,
no way.
I was a little offended until I was like, wait, that's actually a compliment.
Yeah.
That's okay. Yeah, that is me. But
Sort of, yeah, like a backhanded compliment.
And
You're
then-
not that good.
And I'm like, yeah, well, come and check us out. We're playing this Amvets thing. And so he came, he brought his brother, and while we're doing that show, we just happened to, so Joe McCauley kind of just started showing up and playing with Roost.
Yeah.
And some of the guys in the band were like, who is this guy? Who does he think he is? And I was like, he's awesome. Let's just let him play. I was like, he wants to play over everything as long as I tell him where and when. It's going to be fine. Like
That guy pissed me off one time. We ordered a bunch of pizza, and he just showed up and started eating
it all.
I never paid for any of it. I'm like, where the hell did this guy come from?
That sounds perfectly right.
Yeah. He's like that, that Homer meme where he just kind of comes through the bush
Yeah.
and then back out?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Joe.
Yeah. Yep. He would come out of nowhere. And the thing is, he wouldn't be there, not right away. He'd show up when the crowd shows up and then kind of like insert himself.
Yeah.
The thing is, I kind of knew that was going to I knew that was going to happen all the time. And I was kind of like, it's not going to hurt. Like if I'll say, dude, shut up. I got to sing here, like, or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, Joe he always had a good spirit about that. Like his heart was in the right place, And I just knew he was very talented. I could just tell immediately that he had the chops and stuff, but he was a little bit unhinged in his approach to it. But it felt really good. Actually, I felt like it was a good stepping stone, the Roost thing before Gypsy Foot. But yeah, so we were doing this show at the Amvets, and I had decided that was one where I planned to have Joe. I planned to have him there. I also planned to have Roger Nordquist playing as a guest, doing percussion, and I was stoked about that. It was like, this is going to add another level. And It turned out really good because we were down a band member, so I was like, oh, it's kind of a relief. At least we still have sort of a fuller sound. We end up doing like a jam thing towards the end. And because we were just improvising, Derek Elam, he was our lead guitar player. Derek Elam didn't really feel comfortable with just kind of improvising on stage for that show or whatever, or that moment. He was like, I'll just let you guys kind of do that. Well, so he steps down. Chad jumps up on stage, and I was like, yeah, come on up. And he starts freestyling some rap to it. And I see Nolan in the audience kind of looking like, I want to get up there.
I want a piece of this.
I want some. Yeah. He's looking up from the audience. He kind of gives me a look, like, a little eyebrow raised, like, and so I'm like, and he like points at Derek's guitar, like, is anybody going to play that thing? And
He's
I'm
like Joe pointing at the pizza. Is anybody going to eat that?
I remember kind of looking around like, where is Derek? I don't think he'll mind. So like I point, I'm like, yeah, go ahead, get up here. And Nolan gets up, starts ripping some, starts ripping something on the guitar. And at the moment, nobody was thinking anything of it, but that would have been the entirety of Gypsy Foot playing at that moment. It was because the core of Roost was Ira Roberson on drums, Dylan Marcus on bass, Derek Elam on lead guitar, Dustin Krint on rhythm guitar, myself on rhythm, sometimes lead and vocals, and Dustin vocals too. And then, of course, later we adapted. Joe kind of became a permanent guest, is what I always kind of called him in the later part of Roost. So he was just kind of built in. And Roger, I wanted to do stuff with just because I was like, I love his percussion playing and it'd be fun to do. So I just asked him to join on that show. And so it just happened to be that. And then you add the Falcon Brothers, and then you have essentially those two guests with the Falcon Brothers equals Gypsy Foot. So that's what built that band. Around the same time Gypsy Foot started is when I also jumped back into doing a project with you and Ben, and then it was with Adam Abrahamson and Jason Birch in Cunning Stunts.
Yeah.
And that was super fun, and I was loving that because I was actually playing bass.
Oh, that's right.
I think just bass, I think, was my instrument in that, which was super fun for me because it was like, oh, this is cool. You guys were holding down the guitars, you and Adam, and it was like, Adam definitely had all the lead stuff, like he was, I mean,
which if we ever do a third iteration of this, I want to do bass. I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Yep. That would be awesome. Yeah. Adam and me would be fun playing guitar together, which has never happened.
Right.
Which is interesting. So that's where, Cunning Stunts, Gypsy Foot. And then after that, I, in like the 2014-15 is when I would have started my personal project, Chameleon Moonflower.
Oh, yeah.
Before, which, of course, during that, too, I was also playing with Anonymous Phenomenon. So Anonymous Phenomenon, that's been going on since I moved back. They were already going on before I had moved to Minneapolis in 2009, 2010. Came back to Bismarck the year of the flood, 2011. Shortly after that, Nolan was like, I know you haven't been really playing music, because I basically shut it down in Minneapolis. I was trying to do it for a little bit, and then I kind of got disheartened and was like, fuck it. I'm just going to work a job and be like a normal person. And hopefully that'll be good for me. Well, it turned out not the best. But yeah, when I come back, Nolan was like, how about if we start a band? And he had a really cool idea for it. He's like, maybe we do something that's kind of like funk-based, sort of Motown, R&B funk type stuff. And I loved that idea because at the time, lots of new R&B stuff was kind of happening, and it was kind of a hot thing. And actually now, if you watch any YouTuber guitar videos, there's so much influence of that R&B style guitar playing. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But that's a whole nother story. But yeah, we shifted into kind of doing that thing, and Nolan was like, I know you haven't been really playing, so what if you just sing in the band, and we'll take care of I'll either play guitar or we'll have Pat Phillips and so I was like, yeah, I could get down with that. And so that's what we ended up doing with Anonymous Phenomenon. That would have been 2011, 12-ish until current, because I still do shows with them and that band, as the title suggests, has never had an exact bunch of members. Nolan and myself have remained key components to it, but I'm pretty sure there have been iterations prior to that where Nolan wasn't even in it at all. Because I believe it really started from Pat Phillips. Pat Phillips booked some gigs without a band and basically was like, well, I think we can do this if we just put a band together every, we'll just see who can make it and start playing and just see what happens. So that's kind of the core of Anonymous. And I do think credit is due to Pat Phillips for kind of forming this idea. And from there, once I moved back in 2011, that it shifted more into this R&B, funk, soul thing. And now we're kind of doing a new iteration of it where it still has that, but we're trying to shift into like a new direction with it, which is kind of fun. I think that's been one of the key components to my musical history, is that I don't really want to get pinned down to a specific, we were talking about genres earlier. You look at my musical history and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see what you're saying. You don't really stick to, besides Anonymous kind of going that route. Mm-hmm. Even Gypsy Foot, people would call that a jam band or whatever. But if you segregate the songs from the albums, they're all very different. Like the variety that was happening in that band, it's because there were 7 different minds going like, I want to do this.
You're right,
and then the other guy going, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that at all. I want to do this. And then like you'd find compromise.
I'll do that if we do this.
Yeah, we would make compromise with it.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
Okay, you want to do like a country song. Well, I want to do like a progressive rock song or whatever, like, yeah, I think it's kept things interesting up until currently playing with Anonymous Phenomenon and artificial AIs, which is, again, I think I mentioned that earlier. It's like ska, but I like that Pat was calling it Pat Litton was calling it fourth wave. And I've been trying to contribute and write new song ideas for that. We're recording an album that we've been working on over the past like few months. It's we honestly started it quite a while ago now, but it's just been hard. Like everybody's got busy schedules and stuff. So it's like, okay, well, we'll get to, whenever so-and-so can make it to overdub these vocals or whatever. So we will have an album and already kind of have enough material to be starting a second. Like it's pretty fast progressive band in that way, where it's just like, oh, okay, we got another new song idea. Oh, okay, here's another one. Somebody else brought another song idea. And it's fun because there's a lot of covers that are kind of easy to turn into ska too, where it's like at a rehearsal like a few months ago, we were like, oh, we should do that Beatles song, Hey Bulldog. And I think I suggested it because Andrew Larrabee had mentioned that song once as wanting to cover that. And I was like, that would be that actually is a perfect ska song. Like you can easily like fit that groove, like a ska kind of drum beat underneath that. And so, yeah, anyway, we haven't like played that live, but we have rehearsed it and it sounds pretty cool. Like it fits the style really well. And there's a ton of others that I've thought of like, oh, that would be a good cover. But then we just keep writing original tunes. So there's not really much need to do the covers then, but yeah, that's probably the main reason to be in it at all, is doing the original stuff in the first place, which that's one aspect that with Anonymous we do a lot of cover songs, and I think some people kind of view that as more of a cover band, but there is a lot of original music that's come out of that too. Unfortunately, not a lot of it's been documented. But we did just recently record a couple of songs from that, which hopefully we'll eventually have like a video. And we did this out at Joe Johnson's out at the ranch, and he's got a cool little setup going on out there. We're able to do video with Matt Foster came out and John Geck, and they did like a whole video thing.
Nice.
While we recorded. So it's like a live recording. It's going to be really cool because it's all live. Like there's not going to be any post, like magic there. It's basically what happened live in that room that day. And then whatever, they'll use the footage combined with the audio, and hopefully we'll be able to put that out soon and have some of the original music that's been written at least come out. That same day we did record a song with Kit Pines too, which is really cool. The experiences leading up to Gypsy Foot definitely made me able to be in that band. Like all of these other projects leading up to that helped make it, because that band is the one that really kind of went, like we went out and toured, and we'd played a lot of different places across the country, and we kind of put a lot into it and had cool offers to do lots of things that we didn't do a lot of the offers that we got because you can only, you can't do everything. So it's like we tried to do what we could. There's certain things, like I remember a guy offering for us to tour Japan, and I really, for one, really wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I don't know that everybody wanted that. I think that's also that's such a huge decision.
For sure.
And commitment, and like not knowing what that would be like at all.
Yeah. Almost scary.
Yeah. So, that's one where I wish we could have done that, but who knows? Maybe that would have been the worst thing in the world too. You never know. Traveling with that band, we definitely had lots of experiences where I would be the driver a lot of times on the road. Nolan or myself or Dylan, I think, did a fair amount of driving, but a lot of times it was like Nolan or myself that would do a big bulk of the driving. It felt like to me. And there was one pretty gnarly incident where we had the van that we called the Groove Mobile.
Yeah.
And we were traveling back from playing I think it was the first time playing either Big Woo or Harvest Fest in Geneva, Minnesota. We're on the way back traveling through Minneapolis, and the traffic was it was like rush hour traffic as we're going through. And then I remember going around a corner, and like all of a sudden the lane I'm in was backed up, but the lanes around us, like both sides of us, were just flying. And I come around a corner, and my lane is just stopped. And I couldn't go into either lane because they're both just flowing fast. And so I'm forced to just slam on the brakes. And of course, we're carrying this 2,000-pound trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Full of gear. And so like my reaction time was not fast enough. We totally plowed into the back of this other dude, smashed out their rear window of I think they had a minivan type vehicle, smashed it out. These guys were super cool and like, oh, whatever, no big deal. Like I mean, of course, I think we collected information or whatever. And it was one of those things. But I remember it being like those guys being super cool about it, but also some people in the band not having a very good time with it because like there was some people kind of mildly intoxicated or and and we're like traveling back, not nobody that was driving. This is like passengers. Right. They're being strictly a passenger. We were being responsible.
Of course.
I was the sober driver. But yeah, I smashed into the back of that vehicle, and I think I gave a couple of band members. I'm not going to even say who, but I know I scared a few people, and there was some upset. Some band members like chewing me out for like, dude, what the fuck, And like, I'm like, dude, I couldn't. There's nothing I really could have done. Yeah. Like it was too quick of my reaction time was just not fast enough. Mm-hmm. It was just unfortunate. But yeah, what a bad trip for a couple of people.
Yeah.
But those doing those music festivals was also just a huge growing experience, and that was probably the most humbling part of my music career thus far, because it's like you hit a certain page of like going back to the days of playing with you and Ben, and like we're just hammering away playing as many shows as we can in different places in North Dakota, and then we're like fast forward to then playing with Gypsy Foot, and I'm playing all these shows in different states and different places and at lots of music festivals, where I came to realize pretty quickly that there's the bands that we know about that are huge and famous. Right. And we revere them as being like the top contenders and like the best musicians in the world. Mm-hmm. And now I kind of laugh about that, because I know from that short window of experience that I got, or like 6-7 years, I guess, with Gypsy Foot, where we were solidly playing. And in that window of time, I saw the best bands I've ever seen and heard in my life, and you've never heard of them, and nobody has. Yeah. And they blow away like some of the, like I can think of my favorite group, and like some of these people that I saw playing, it's like they could play circles around like some of my favorite musicians. When you think your mind has been blown, be prepared to like see the next big thing, you know, because it's like, I don't know, it just was very humbling to me because I was like, wow, I really am just like, it kind of brought me back to that initial conversation with you of like being like, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't really do this.
Yeah, right.
And it's like, well, fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I remember thinking during this time, like, I really am kind of just faking it. Because like I'm looking around and seeing all these performers and going like, holy crap. I don't want to have to ever be on stage with that same guy, like going like, oh, I'm going to play a riff, then you play back to me. Okay. Like, no. You know, it's just like, it was really humbling to like look around and go like, wow, these people how do you even get that good? How do you get that good? Yeah. But then now I realize that's also it's never been about that. It's about your attitude and about who you are. It's more than anything. I think it does come through. You know, there's certain famous musicians who've been just huge douchebag people, but eventually the story eventually tells itself. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of how it works. Eventually, the ones that are like the real legends kind of come out of the woodwork of like, oh, actually, this dude you'd never heard of, that's the guy who made it all happen. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like this is, it's like Eric Clapton's J.J. Cale, so to speak. I don't know if you know who that is, but Eric Clapton basically made a lot of J.J. Cale songs famous, which were already amazing songs when J.J. Cale did them, you know. But that's just kind of an example. There's lots of that going on. My goal with the whole music thing is just to show up, do something that's uniquely my own, hopefully inspire people, you know, to do the same thing and like try to make their own way with it and not like just try to be some cookie cutter version of something else, you know, because I think it all starts with wanting that and like not knowing what it is exactly you want. And then eventually the true art of it comes through of like, actually, I do kind of have a clear vision of what I want here, because it's like, I really just want to be myself. I really just want to show people what I'm capable of doing, you know?
Yeah. Fuck yeah, man.
Yeah.
Well, shit. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, dude. Hopefully we've got something good that you can make into a cohesive story. I feel like
if you think I'm gonna chop this up and edit, no way. This is from beginning to end. I'm just gonna lay it out and put it out there.
I love it. I love it
too.
Yeah, it's I'm a bit of a time traveler, I guess, when my this will be a bit of a psychedelic listen for whoever is ready for it. Boy, Chuck Berry was good today. Come on.
We're at about 2 hours now. So, yeah.